here in Seoul.
Coming up on NEWSCENTER tonight. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's aides have been spotted in the Russian city of Vladivostok, reportedly scouting venues for a summit likely to happen this week with President Vladimir Putin.
U.S. Ambassador to South Korea Harry Harris says the ball is in Pyeongyang's court when it comes to deciding whether to continue stalled nuclear talks with Washington.
President Moon Jae-in agrees to boost economic ties with the leader of Kazakhstan, the last stop on the South Korean leader's swing through Central Asia.
South Korea's political parties agreed to fast-track bills on electoral reform and the creation of a unit to probe high-ranking government officials suspected of corruption.
K-pop sensation BTS set 3 Guinness World Records with their latest music video, Boy With Love. NEWSCENTER starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Arirang News Center, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Noadam.
And I'm Han-daeun. Thank you for starting your week with us. We'll begin with the upcoming summit between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Russian President Vladimir Putin. As the world keeps close tabs on the meeting, various media outlets are saying the two will have their first face-to-face on Wednesday or Thursday this week in Vladivostok.
Our Oh Jung-hee starts us off tonight with more details on the much-anticipated summit.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will be in Russia for 3 days starting this Wednesday and may visit the Ballet Theatre and Navy Fleet headquarters. That's according to Japan-based Kyoto news agency, citing Russian government officials. The agency reported that the North Protocol chief Kim Chang-sun toured around the world-renowned Mariinsky Theatre, a public aquarium and Russia's Pacific Fleet headquarters, all of which, therefore, could be visited by Kim Jong-un. Kyoto added that Kim will make his way to Vladivostok using a special train on Wednesday and have a dinner banquet with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin. On the next day, Kim and Putin will have their one-on-one meeting as well as an expanded meeting. On Friday, before returning to Pyeongyang, the agency says Kim could meet with North Korean students and researchers in Russia or tour around Vladivostok. North Korea's advance team is busy checking the security in Vladivostok. Pyongyang's protocol chief Kim Chang-sun, the deputy commander of the Guard Command Kim Cheol-gyu, and Vice Foreign Minister Im Cheon-il were spotted inspecting Russia's Far Eastern Federal University. This is where the summit is most likely to happen. Russia's RIA Novosti agency reports that a sign had appeared in one of the buildings that Kim Jong-un will be there. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
While North Korea continues to blame U.S. officials for the failure of the Hanoi summit, the U.S. ambassador to South Korea says there was nothing good about Pyongyang's offer. Ambassador Harris also said that they're continuing talks with the North even after the summit collapsed. Here's Arirang's foreign ministry correspondent, Lee Ji-won.
The U.S. ambassador to South Korea, Harry Harris, says that there were only 2 choices in Hanoi, either no deal or a bad deal, which led President Donald Trump to end the summit without an agreement. Speaking Monday to correspondents at South Korea's foreign ministry, Harris said North Korean leader Kim Jong-un had offered nothing good.
If we had taken that deal that Kim Jong-un himself offered, we would have seen the immediate relief from almost all of the sanctions. In return for that, there was a promise of dismantling Yongbyon at some time in the future. Almost all of their capacity to produce weapons would have remained intact. That would not have made South Korea, the United States, Japan, China, Russia, or the whole region safer.
Still, the 2 sides have continued to talk since Hanoi, and what happened there, he said, put them in a better place to move forward. But Harris also reiterated that the ball is in North Korea's court. He said Kim now knows what President Trump expects if he didn't before Hanoi, and that it's up to him whether or not there's a third summit. Harris was asked about South Korea's idea of a middle deal, which would combine Washington's comprehensive agreement and Pyongyang's step-by-step approach. He said he's not familiar with the details, but he knows Presidents Moon and Trump have agreed that sanctions relief depends on North Korea's final fully verified denuclearization. As for projects between the two Koreas, Harris said he has not seen any formal proposal from Seoul asking for sanctions relief, though there has been much discussion. Harris said Pyongyang and Washington can still make progress even if it's not on denuclearization and sanctions. They can work on the other three pillars of the Singapore summit, improving ties, building a peace regime on the Korean Peninsula, and recovering the remains of those killed in the Korean War. Reports say the U.S. will soon announce that it's no longer granting waivers to South Korea or 7 other countries to import oil from Iran. Harris said he's not sure if that stance is changing, but that America's policy goal is still to get all countries to stop buying Iranian petroleum products. 이지원, Arirang News.
Seoul notified Pyongyang today that it's holding a commemorative event this Saturday at the inter-Korean border village of Panmunjeom to mark the first anniversary of the historic talks between South Korean President Moon Jae-in and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Seoul's Unification Ministry reported just a few hours ago that South Korea informed the North of the event through the Joint Liaison Office this afternoon. Unlike speculation that the two Koreas would celebrate the day together, Pyongyang had not been part of the planning efforts. It's not confirmed yet whether North Korean officials will be attending the event. Special stages will be set up on the South Korean side of the Panmunjeom on Saturday for the commemorative event for art and music performances. Among them will be concerts by artists from South Korea, the U.S., China, and Japan. It increasingly looks like the U.S. will no longer grant sanctions waivers to any country that is currently importing Iranian crude or condensate. The Washington Post, citing U.S. State Department officials, says the announcement is to be made by Secretary of State Mike Pompeo on Monday morning local time. The State Department has a press briefing by Pompeo scheduled for that time, but hasn't given any further details on the topic. The current sanctions waiver that the U.S. gave to 8 countries, including South Korea, is set to expire on May 2nd. The sanctions follow the U.S. withdrawal from the 2015 nuclear deal with Iran in May last year, as the deal had not stopped Iran from developing its ballistic missile program. The president of Kazakhstan says he will help in any way possible to reach the goal of a nuclear-free Korean Peninsula. He made the comment during his first summit with South Korean President Moon Jae-in, who will wrap up his trip to Central Asia tonight. Our Shin Se-min, who's traveling with the president, files this report.
President Moon Jae-in met with President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev of Kazakhstan in the newly renamed capital of Nur-Sultan and discussed bilateral ties and Kazakhstan's experience with denuclearization.
카자흐스탄은 자발적인 비핵화를 통해서 경제 성장을 이룬 그런 경험을 가지고 있기 때문에 우리 한반도의 비핵화 문제에 있어서 큰 영감을 주고 있습니다.
President Moon sought Kazakhstan's support for his push for the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, to which Tokayev responded that his country fully backs the peace process and will continue to do so in any way possible. During an earlier interview with a local newspaper, Moon said Kazakhstan's wisdom and experience of denuclearization can be of great help for the peace process on the Korean Peninsula. The Central Asian nation once held the world's 4th largest nuclear stockpile with over 14 nuclear warheads, but relinquished all of its Soviet-era weapons by mid-1995 and adopted a policy of non-proliferation. The leaders also discussed their economic ties and agreed to increase their country's future-oriented cooperation and better their people-to-people exchanges. Moon said his new northern policy, aimed at ensuring peace and the joint development of Eurasia, falls right in line with Kazakh's plan of becoming one of the world's 30 advanced nations by 2050 under its national development strategy. The South Korean leader is learning about denuclearization from a country which has first-hand experience with the process and hopes that the experience will allow him to better play his role as mediator when it comes to North Korea's denuclearization. Shin Se-min, Arirang News, Nur Sultan.
Meanwhile, something else that happened during President Moon's trip to Kazakhstan was the return of the remains of independence fighters who arrived in Korea earlier today, those of Kae Bong-hoo and Hwang Un-jung and their respective spouses. They have been laid to rest at Seoul National Cemetery and Daejeon National Cemetery in accordance with their families' wishes. The remains of 3 others, including the legendary General Hong Bom-do, are yet to return. South Korea will continue to work with Kazakhstan to bring them back as soon as possible. Turning to local politics now, and after weeks of wrangling, 4 rival parties have reached a tentative agreement to fast-track a number of key bills. However, the main opposition party did not take part in the deal and threatened an all-out boycott. Kim Min-ji has the details.
South Korea's ruling Democratic Party and 3 minor opposition parties have agreed on a package deal to designate 2 key reform bills as fast-track. This means after 330 days, the bills can be put up for a full floor vote, even if they haven't been approved by the relevant parliamentary committees. The deal excludes the main opposition Liberty Korea party.
After small changes to the deal on electoral reform bill, it will be designated as a fast-track bill. The bills to create a body to investigate ranking officials will also be designated.
Last month, the 4 parties reached a tentative deal on electoral reform to better reflect voters' party preference and boost representation. The number of parliamentary seats would be unchanged to 300, but proportional representation seats would be increased to 75 from the current 47. As for the new body that will investigate high-ranking officials, it will have the right to investigate alleged corruption and can ask courts to issue arrest warrants. But they will not have the authority to indict unless the charges are against judges, prosecutors, or high-ranking police officers, a move to keep the prosecution in check.
After getting approval from our respective lawmakers, the floor leaders of the 4 parties will do all they can to designate the bills as fast-track at the respective parliamentary committees.
The 4 parties said that the goal is not to vote on the bills the way they are, but that this will lead to candid negotiations with the main opposition party. The Conservative Party had been against the move and had laid out a proposal of its own.
There was never a time in the National Assembly's history when reform bills were passed without agreement. Designating the bills as fast-track is against the principles of democracy and constitutes a refusal to negotiate.
The latest development is expected to drive a wedge between the main opposition party and those in on the deal. The Liberty Korea party says it will no longer cooperate in legislative affairs should the 4 parties push ahead to designate the bills as fast-track. This casts a dark cloud over the April parliamentary session and will put on hold a stack of pending bills that need to be passed. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
The South Korean government plans to focus on fostering the industries of non-memory semiconductors, bio and future cars. A Blue House official told Seoul-based Yonhap news agency on Monday that these fields are expected to lead the Moon administration's innovative growth plan because South Korea is competitive in them and they also have the potential to create new jobs. The official said this is part of efforts to nurture a first-mover local company that's a global leader. It's also in line with the government's aim of making Korea a pioneer economy rather than one that chases after others. Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon says South Korea has made great achievements in science and technology, including successfully launching the world's first 5G network service. He made the remarks at an event commemorating Science, Information and Communications Day on Monday.
Now we must make the world's best achievements. Let's create new standards for ICT and products and services of world-class quality.
The Prime Minister also called on experts to solve social issues, including fine dust pollution and climate change through technology. He vowed to implement a regulatory sandbox and increase funding to more than $2 billion by the year 2022 to better support research. Also, around 120 people were awarded for their contribution to advancing the country at the event. Exports in one of Korea's crucial sectors, information and technology, continues to decline, especially those of memory chips. Kim Da-mi reports.
South Korea's ICT exports slipped once again in March, mainly due to sluggish overseas sales of the country's main export items, semiconductors, displays, and mobile phones. According to the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy on Monday, a total of $15.9 billion of ICT products were exported last month, down 16.3% from a year earlier. This marks the fifth month in a row that ICT exports have fallen. The country's key export semiconductors declined by almost 17% on-year on the back of falling global prices and lower demand for system semiconductors. Falling global prices also hit exports of displays, LCD panels, and OLED panels. In addition, the stagnant global smartphone market meant mobile phone and phone parts exports continue to fall. Heated global competition, particularly from China, has also affected display and mobile phone exports. By region, ICT exports to China, including Hong Kong, dropped around 22%, with exports to Vietnam and the US falling by 7% and around 5% respectively. However, sales to the EU increased by 0.5%. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
Now, most countries have some way of taxing wealth that's inherited, but in Korea, the heirs of big conglomerates pay the second highest rate in the OECD. There's been a debate recently about possibly lowering it. Cha Sang-mi has those details.
The so-called silver spoon effect, a lifelong advantage given to children of affluent families, is something that's often looked down upon, particularly by people in Korea. Inheritance taxes levied on inherited property, money, or possessions has therefore been a thorny issue. South Korea's top rate of inheritance tax is 50%, the second highest in the OECD. This figure is well above the OECD average, and over 10 OECD members have no taxes at all on inheriting property. Experts say the gap is due to the recent scrapping or lowering of inheritance taxes in many OECD countries like the US and Germany. Small business owners have called for widened tax exemptions on SMEs, while many civic groups say the status quo should be maintained. One expert points out that the exemption criteria is too narrow.
Exemptions for business heirs only apply to an estate worth between $17.5 million to $44 million, and there are other strict requirements.
Mr. Im says a rate between 25% to 30% would be most appropriate, in consideration of the OECD average of 26%. And for companies to avoid any backlash regarding these exemptions, he said the savings should be recirculated for the benefit of society through donations or job creation. Regarding concerns that a high tax burden on estates is detrimental to businesses, Professor Park says it's a misconception.
It is misleading to say that there aren't many good companies here because of the high inheritance tax rate. Strong businesses are created first before issues on inheritance are ever dealt with.
Professor Park points out that the government should rather shift its focus on policies such as deregulation to allow firms to grow. Cha Sang-mi, Arirang News.
The death toll has risen to nearly 300 due to the multiple blasts in Sri Lanka on Sunday. Authorities say they've arrested 24 people for the attacks, cited as the deadliest attack in the country's history in nearly a decade. The international community has sent their condolences. Our Kim Ji-yeon with the latest.
A series of explosions set off almost simultaneously across Sri Lanka on Easter Sunday have left an estimated 290 people dead and more than 500 injured. Among the fatal victims, at least 35 were foreign nationals. Local police say at least 24 people have been arrested, but had given no information about their identities nor affiliation to any terrorist group. Sunday's attack has been the deadliest incident the country has witnessed since a civil war in 2009. Addressing reports that officials had intelligence, the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka acknowledged late Sunday security services have been aware of information prior to the attacks and said the government is looking into why adequate precautions were not taken on time to prevent such tragedy. The international community condemned the attacks, including Pope Francis, who cited it as cruel violence in which the perpetrators have targeted innocent people celebrating Easter, one of the most important days of the year for Christians. President Moon Jae-in, in a Facebook message, sent his condolences to the Sri Lankan people, saying he couldn't believe the tragedy that resulted in so many innocent lives lost, adding that in no circumstances one should be targeted due to one's faith or belief. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Today, April 22nd, is Earth Day. It's a time to give extra thought to how we treat the environment and to do something to improve it. Over the past year, Korea has been trying to cut back on the use of plastic in the form of things like bags and plastic cups. Our Kim Mo-kyun has this report.
Over the past few years, South Korea has had one of the highest plastic usage rates in the world. The government has recently stepped up efforts to confront the environmental issue, introducing measures aimed at reducing the use of plastic. Last August, the Environment Ministry announced a ban on serving drinks in disposable plastic cups, with the aim of cutting the nation's annual consumption of 3 billion plastic cups by half. Cafes that go against the rule can be fined up to $1,800. In line with the policy, the government also banned large stores from providing plastic bags this April. Some 2,000 large supermarkets, department stores, and shopping malls, as well as 11,000 grocery stores larger than 165 square meters, have been banned from handing out disposable plastic bags and instead are offering paper bags. If stores are found to have violated this rule, they could be fined over $2,600, depending on the number of times they have committed the offense. The Environment Ministry says the latest policy could reduce the number of plastic bags used by 2.2 billion bags a year. But it seems like the public still thinks more could be done. According to a survey held by international environmental organization Greenpeace Korea on more than 1,000 adults in the country earlier this month, 9 out of 10 agreed on the seriousness of Korea's garbage and plastic waste and demanded stronger regulations on the use of disposable plastic. 60% of respondents said that the Environment Ministry is not doing enough to tackle the problem, while only 5% said they are doing a good job. Kim Mo-kyun, Arirang News.
K-pop stars BTS have made music video history after the video for their song Boy With Love broke several world records for most YouTube views in a single day. Our Won Jong-un reports.
BTS's latest music video, Boy With Love, has broken several world records after it was viewed 74.6 million times on YouTube in its first 24 hours of its release. The Guinness World Records organization has confirmed that the South Korean boy band has broken 3 major records in total. The song, which was uploaded to YouTube on April 12th, broke the records for the most viewed YouTube video in 24 hours, most viewed YouTube music video in 24 hours, and most viewed YouTube music video in 24 hours by a K-pop group. That record had been held by girl group Blackpink, whose music video for Kill This Love was viewed 56.7 million times in one day on YouTube after its release earlier this month. As well as breaking records, BTS's latest album is topping music charts around the world. The album Map of Seoul, Persona, is the group's 3rd #1 on the main US Billboard 200 album chart, making BTS the first group since the Beatles to have 3 #1 albums in less than a year. The band's first #1 came with Love Yourself Tear in June last year, before the following album, Love Yourself Answer, again conquered the chart in September. And BTS are topping charts on the other side of the Atlantic too, landing their first ever UK #1 album with their latest release, and becoming the first ever Korean artist to top the UK charts. BTS will resume their international stadium tour on May 4th at the Rose Bowl in Los Angeles. Won Jong-un, Arirang News.
The Hallyu, or the Korean wave, continues to make big on the global stage, but calls are growing for a diversification of Hallyu. In a Part 3 series of ongoing efforts to diversify Hallyu, our Kan Hyung-woo today takes a look at how South Korea's men's cosmetics industry is getting ready to go global.
Men's grooming products made in South Korea are poised to take the world by storm.
I don't see why not. If women get to use all the beauty products, why can't men? We like to be handsome. We like to show ourselves off.
According to researchandmarkets.com, the global male grooming products market is expected to reach $78.6 billion by 2023, growth of about 5% every year, while the domestic market is already surging. The men's grooming section has seen its sales go up by 40% a year for the past 3 years in a row, showing how fast the market is growing. As for the advantages of men's K-beauty products, users point to their cost-effectiveness.
I think it's a lot more affordable than what's available out there. Like, you can find things for as low as $7 sometimes, and on top of that, the ingredients are always quite great and unique.
To reach beyond Asia, experts say it's important to develop strategies targeting specific regions.
If the companies want to get into European or American markets, they should focus on adjusting their products for those skin types. They also need to come up with certain qualities to fit their needs in those regions.
K-beauty products are already hugely popular among female consumers around the world. According to the Ministry of SMEs and Startups, South Korea's exports in cosmetic products grew by 25% in 2018 compared to the previous year, reaching a total value of $4.6 billion, making it seem likely that men's K-beauty is set for similar success. Kan Hyung-woo, Arirang News.
The Korean government has named 200 local SMEs as hidden champion companies for reaching more than $5 million in exports. The SMEs ministry will subsequently offer them various government subsidies and financial benefits. The firm's average revenue has increased by 24% over the past 3 years, with more than 30% of their revenue coming from exports. The Korea International Trade Association has signed a deal that could help small local firms boost sales overseas. The agreement is with the World Federation of Overseas Korean Traders Association, which has a combined 7,000 members in 21 countries. The Trade Association will choose 20 companies this year and 100 in the next 3 years to help them become local trading firms. Seoul's Trade Ministry claims the agreement will create an extra $1.7 billion in exports. Samsung has made the list of Forbes magazine's top 50 companies using blockchain, the technology behind Bitcoin. The Forbes Blockchain 50 list, released on Monday, highlighted how Samsung uses blockchain in its user authentication system, eliminating the need to log in every time. According to market research firm IDC, global spending related to blockchain this year is expected to reach nearly $3 billion. Local researchers have found that air purifiers can reduce indoor fine dust by over 81% when windows are closed. The Gyeonggi-do Institute of Health and Environment also found that purifiers are most effective when the power is turned to the maximum level for the first 10 minutes and then to a normal level afterwards. The institute plans to make public the results of its 10-day experiment to help people use their air purifiers more effectively. That has been your 3-minute newsflash. It is that time in the newscast where we take a look at some of the digital media content available on Arirang's various social media platforms.
And Justin from When in Korea, or Wink, shows us somewhere a little different today, an e-sports stadium. Take a look.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Wink. I'm your host, Justin, and today we're at a very special place, especially if you're an esports fan. We're here at Law Park, created by Riot Games Korea.
He's able to go over the ball. Broxton goes in! Career with the Chinese scene means that he could very well.
And we're joined here by a special guest, Mr. Mark Yoon, who is part of the public relations team. 반갑습니다.
반갑습니다.
네, 혹시 투어 가이드로 부탁드려도 괜찮을까요?
아, 예, 그럼요. 자세하게 안내해 드리겠습니다.
감사합니다. 여기 봐도 되게 조명도 화려하고 they've got artwork, right?
맞습니다. 이 양쪽에 이제 좀 유명한 선수들 혹은 선수로 활동했던 지금 은퇴한 이제 레전드들의 이제 초상화들이 그려져 있는데요.
The legend himself, 우리 페이커 형님.
여기는 이제 빌지워터 카페라고 부르는데 빌지워터라는 데도
네.
사실 저희 LOL 내에 있는 세계관 중에 하나예요. 빌지워터는 이제 항구 도시고 항구 도시라는 것이 결국 보면 되게 다양한 배경을 가진 사람들이 모이는 곳이잖아요.
Yeah, so what are you guys doing in Korea? I'm just very curious.
So we're here on vacation right now.
Okay.
The timing of why we're here now is actually for the LCK.
So you guys specifically chose this day or this time span so that you guys could come watch the LCK finals, right? Where are you from?
Taiwan.
Taiwan. You're writing a letter. 여기 보시면 편지 쓰시는 중인데 you're writing a letter. Coco says to Faker, Dear Faker, heart. It's a very cute little heart. 생일 축하합니다. 생일 당일에 한국에 올 수가 없어서 미리 생일 축하해요. So we met a couple more foreigners. Where are you from?
Russia.
Russia. Are you guys here to watch the game or?
Oh no, unfortunately we couldn't buy tickets.
One of your wish lists
Yes,
is
yes.
to watch LCK in Korea.
Yeah.
So 버킷리스트가 한국에서 LCK를 보는 거였대요. That's his wish list. Okay, so if you look on over there, we have the Korean announcers showing the host. And if you look on this side, we have the foreigners, because they're speaking Korean at one end and also English on the other end with the live broadcast. Faker, it's on the left. You can see him. Show him Faker. Yo, look at that. Calm and cool, baby. 분위기가 어때요? 직접 보니까?
첫 직감았는데.
네. 아, 처음이세요?
네. 열기도 너무 뜨겁고
네.
너무 재밌게.
If you're an esports fan and you're ever in Korea, please visit Law Park. You can actually come here, you get to see Faker in real life. The energy here is amazing. So please visit when you're in Korea. Thanks, guys. I'll see you next time.
The western part of the peninsula was especially hot today.
That's right, and the temperature is seeping through the studio at the moment as well, actually. But the temperatures are expected to drop following some rain tomorrow. For more, let's turn to our Michelle Park at the Weather Centre. Michelle, what's the latest?
Hi guys, now the easterly wind warmed up the nation. However, tomorrow's high will be about 2 to 4 degrees lower because of the rain. Now the rain will start from Jeju in the early morning hours and expand nationwide by late afternoon tomorrow. Now the northern regions will see a maximum of 20 millimeters, while Jeju and the southern coast can expect heavier rain with thunder and lightning as well. The morning lows are warming up these days. Now Seoul will begin at 16 degrees Celsius, while Gyeongju will be at 9 degrees. Now, even with the rain, the highs will still linger within the low to mid-20s, or reaching up to 25 degrees Celsius. Now, more showers are in the forecast this week, so make sure you have your umbrellas handy. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that wraps it up for this edition of Arirang News. Thank you, as always, for watching.
News in depth is coming up shortly, so don't go away.